some computer issues there with we weren't sure if we could hear me or not, but it was Gouda's headphones, and so apparently my headphones worked. So what we were talking about, for those who are joining us or just joining us now, we'll have to ask the question I always ask them first. Hey Gouda, can you see my screen? Can you see my
yes? Your screen is good.
Fantastic. So we were talking about, I was over on Fantasy Labs. This is part of their free stuff, so I don't think me advertising for them a little bit. I was looking at the lines and the line movement for today, and we were talking about Portland. I was talking about the Portland Golden State game. It's been bet up 6.5 points in this game. It's a late game. We were just talking about it here. I wonder if they're still talking about it over in Slack. Nope, not really. Not that. And so about how best to stack the game, because we've noticed the late games are just not getting a ton of ownership. Late game hammers, and this game has the second highest total on the slate. And I was talking about how Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, McCollum's been playing well. Lillard has not, but this is a good spot for him. He's in a good spot. We're talking about how Brandon recommended Andrew Wiggins, who is in play, but I don't know if I can swing him. And now I was kind of looking for some value in this game. The current conversation in Slack is about what to do with Derrick Jones Jr. I'm going to talk about Derrick Jones second. Shocker, I know that I'm going to talk about, like, Derrick Jr. he drives me in. Okay, everyone talks about Jones Jr. as this guy who should be a DFS guy that we should be rolling. I'm sitting there staring at his numbers, and he just doesn't do anything with the minutes he's given. He's given 36 or 35 or more minutes in 3 straight games and hasn't put up more than 19 fantasy points. Like, he's ridiculously inefficient. 1 for 9 from the field against the Lakers, but this is a game. One of those games. He's athletic. I don't know. I think at $3,800, he actually brings down our price per price per player. Like, we actually get a little bit more money doing that. Can I fit another player from Golden State in here? Yeah, I mean, Wiggins is there. Like I said, got Draymond is back. That could be helpful. I love Nurkic, but $6,700. I don't know if we can swing him. Cantor, on the other hand, has been a guy, and I'm not rolling 4 Portland guys in here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not overstacking Portland here, but you have 4 Portland guys in here. You've got these Portland guys. Cantor's been playing 25 or so minutes, 22, 25 minutes, and he's putting up over 20 points a game at $4,700. I mean, he's pushing that 5X every single game, and that's what we're looking for at least. I mean, we want at least 5X for cash, but for a GPP, he's got upside. Nurkic has been playing a lot of minutes. Maybe Cantor gets up 25-30 in a game with this kind of a volume, and maybe he's a worthwhile player. I'm just thinking this is the kind of game that you can stack them with some Chicago value. There's a lot of value in Chicago today. You got all those players out with COVID or the COVID protocols, and so we've got enough value across and got a little bit of value in Memphis and San Antonio's got some value. And you got that Chicago value. I mean, you're not going to be going down Skylo Gafford. I mean, Gafford at $3K. If I'm not mistaken, he had himself a pretty good game yesterday. 30 points yesterday in 22 minutes. Might he get another 22 minutes today? I mean, 3K is probably worth the shot. They throw him in there. Now I got over $5,000 a player for the rest of your lineup. You can do some things with this lineup. There's definitely value on the board to make this happen. Again, I'm not sure I'm throwing all 3 of those guys out there for Portland, but even if you pick one, maybe you play McCollum or you play Lillard, and you could double stack this game with, again, Memphis, Charlotte's a good spot. Atlanta, Brooklyn's got a huge total. Washington, Minnesota, we talked about them. There's just so many places to go. I think this game, this is one of the reasons I wanted to come on a couple minutes early, is hitting that late gamer. And if it's going to have lower ownership, might as well load that up. Gouda, NBA slate.
You're talking about Jones. I was looking at his numbers out of curiosity, and I mean, on that price, he looks like a guy that's that can stuff the stat sheet, but it looks like his issue has been his field goal percentage is just so low. He looks like he's a bad shooter.
So low.
Terrible. If this guy can hit a couple buckets and he's getting some rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals, I mean, he's definitely ripe for a 5X with those types of minutes. It doesn't seem like he scores enough points to get there, where he's got to do some of the other ancillary things, which, I mean, it looks like he could get there. And sometimes for a GPP, you got to take that kind of risk when you're looking to really get towards the top of the leaderboard. It's the same kind of lineup building fundamentals as any other sport. You take your calculated risks, and sometimes with a guy getting 30, 5+ minutes in 3 consecutive games, you take that risk at a cheap price. And, if he hits a couple buckets, all of a sudden, he's really paying off for you.
Yeah. And the thing about Jones is he's uber athletic. He should be a lot more like just straight up should be getting to the basket and dunking. And I will admit, I've not watched every single minute this guy's been on the court, but he's taken his shots, right? He's got 9 shots, and 2 of those 6 shots. I mean, he should be getting a much higher field goal percentage. His field goal percent, I mean, he's been at less than 50%. He's been at 33% in 3 of those 4 games. And that's just pathetic for a guy of his athleticism. He should be driving to the hoop and using his athleticism, playing down in the paint. He's not a tiny guy, I mean, he's a forward, and he plays, should be playing closer to the basket. And you're absolutely right. The ancillary stats are what's in there. If you saw, he got himself into a bit of foul trouble here and there, which is a problem. But it's a guy at $3,800, I think, who could be a good addition to one of your stacks. And give you some of that high upside. If he pops on his athleticism, you're absolutely right. 25 points is well within reach, and that's over 6x. That's a big return. And again, as a late game hammer, that's somebody that we're looking at. Now, I know you're not a big NBA guy, as you were saying, and that's okay. We're here to talk football in a few minutes, but I'm curious. Is there anything in NBA? Have you been playing this year? Have you tried? Have you put any lineups in? Because I know we do stuff, and it's cool if you don't. I have no idea what you've been doing.
No, not really. I've done a couple of just like small double ups just to see if I catch the hang of it or different things. I just don't know enough players or enough about roles and stuff to really build the lineups or know like the better defensive teams or better offensive teams and all that. So I'm not really not really into it that much.
I hear you. We've been I've been trying this year. I'm trying really hard to get into NBA. I'm also, as we're live, I'm trying to put into our Slack that we are live, and I can't spell channel, so that sounds about right for me. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, I've been getting into the NBA this year. It's fun. It's hard with all the late breaking news. NFL, which we're about to go do our NFL show in a couple minutes. NFL has turned a little bit into like NBA this year with late breaking news and trying to adapt to the variance that's happened within the that's happening within this late breaking news. Now, the one good thing about NFL is we get that news 90 minutes before lock. We can play with that. I know last night I was doing NBA and I had Pascal Siakam in my he's a forward for Toronto. I had him in my cash lineup because it was just a really good matchup against the Knicks. And 6 minutes after lock, they said, yeah, he'll be active, but he's not playing. Now, late swap was a good thing, and the game didn't start for another 24 minutes, so I was able to make some moves. But those moves it limited me just a little bit on some of the moves that I was looking to do because I couldn't play any of the guys from the first game, the 7:00 game. If I would have made some pivots from that, if I knew I would have been able to do that. And so I was sort of limited. I had to go to OG Anunoby, and he did not do anything for me last night. And I put in DeAndre Ayton in cash, which is a bad move because he's been playing poorly this year. But I just didn't have the funds to make it work otherwise. I barely, I made a couple of bucks last night, but it wasn't. It's tough when that news hits you at the last minute. But in the NFL, the news thankfully doesn't hit us at the last minute, and that should segue us pretty nicely into our NFL show, Bankster DFS. What the hell do we go now? I've changed the name of this show so many times. The Bankster DFS Week 17 NFL Kickoff Show, starring Michael Gudadero and Doug Shane.
We had a couple of weeks of we were titling it "Will It Even Matter?" All that fun stuff.
That's right. And geez, this week more than ever, will this be relevant 12 hours from now? Will we log out in an hour and 15 minutes after this show is over? And will any of what we said matter after the next 75 minutes? Let's hope so. I think a lot of it will stand true. But we've renamed it to the NFL Kickoff Show because we want to kick off the week and get ready for the last week of the regular season NFL. I'm sure we'll do some stuff for playoffs. We always put some playoff stuff up there, and I'm sure prior to the Super Bowl, we'll have some crazy live stream. Maybe we'll get everyone in, and we'll just have everyone come on and just talk Super Bowl, and we'll talk this showdown and prop bets. We could do a prop bet show. I'm all excited for things. Anyway, yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. And we, obviously we'll be covering NFL in our Slack chat as well. And you can be part of that Slack chat as well as all of our articles, all the sports we cover, $3.99 a week at banksterdfs.com. We do pro sports, college sports, niche sports, NASCAR, MMA, tennis, golf, all the big sports. We get into card collecting. We just had a guest article by the proprietor of Chicagoland Breaks, came in and wrote an article about grading sports cards, which went over very well in our sports cards room. And then, of course, over at Chicagoland, he had a big blowout sale today, which we all got in on, had some fun with. And so we've got everything. We're covering everything. If it's something that's interesting to sports fans, we cover it at Bankster DFS. And it's just at $3.99 a week. Nothing additional, no hidden costs, no craziness. You can check us out on YouTube as well. Just put in my name, Doug Shane. Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so you know when we go live, when we have new videos, when we're doing all sorts of fun things. And so you get to see this and that. I'm pointing at Guda's face over there. You get to look at us. We go live every Friday night. Well, season's ending, but we'll be back Sunday morning at 11:30 Eastern time to get you ready for the NFL kickoff live before lock. And then I'm sure we'll have a schedule. Yeah, I know we're planning NHL stuff. I'm sure we'll do some more NBA stuff as things move forward. And like I said, we'll definitely do something for the Super Bowl. I'm thinking maybe if I can get enough people on, maybe we'll get some people on. We'll do do a Royal Rumble betting preview show. That might be a little bit of fun. That's coming up on January 31st. We did bet on the air a couple of years ago with the Fanball guys, with Matt Harrison and Brian Johnson and Scott Fish. They had me on to do Royal Rumble, and yeah, so actually kind of proud of myself. I picked both the winners. That was pretty good. But today, for right now, we're talking football. I posted my article this morning or this afternoon in our on our website, banksterdfs.com. I posted it in the Slack chat page for our members. And good, I don't know if I've had an opportunity to look at it yet. I always say that before I start the show because I never know what you do on a Friday afternoon because you're, a high-powered finance doctor, lawyer, pediatrician, something. I know you do something important with your life, so I don't know what you're doing during the day. Maybe you didn't have a chance to look, but in front of you right now is the would be our pool, which already has to get changed with the late breaking news that Alvin Kamara is on the COVID. He got the vid. Great way to start 2021. Seems a lot like 2020. Opens up the game for Latavius Murray, who about. I got to add him to the pool. Adding Latavius Murray to the pool. Why don't we start as we always do with quarterback position? Guda, what are you thinking about the quarterbacks I got on the list? I got Lamar Jackson, Ryan Tannehill, and Kirk Cousins. Is your pool similar? Am I missing? Do I need to delete? Where are we at? And hi, by the way, hello, Guda. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, sir.
Hopefully we're starting off the year on the right foot. Actually, it's funny. My boss yesterday, actually told me a joke about the right foot. He said, at 11:59, make sure you start make sure that your left foot is in the air. And I said, why? He goes, you start 2021 on the right foot.
Yow, dad joke.
Yeah,
pretty good. Though.
So anyway, on quarterback this week. I'm in the same boat. I got those three guys in my pool because they are the three safest this week. Those are the three that are probably not only have the best matchups that we would like to take advantage of, but three of the guys that we can pretty confidently say are going to be in there for all four quarters. I think the only way we see any of these guys pulled is if it's just an absolute blowout where their team is maybe up 40 points at some point. But if that's the case, they're probably having a pretty good day. We can start right off the bat. We can probably even simplify this a little bit. I do like Tannehill's matchup, but I'm not considering him in cash because I'm locked in on Derrick Henry, especially with this Kamara news now. There's basically no reason not to use Derrick Henry, especially in a week 17 where there's going to be plenty of value this week. We're still waiting some of the later injury and practice reports from the day. The West Coast teams are always coming out later. Well, those that are still, that are playing on the West Coast this week. So there are some later reports that, probably are starting to trickle in now. So we'll see if there's any news on, some other guys about maybe not playing or anything like that. And then we'll see, inactives on Sunday or some late breaking stories over the weekend for some of these teams that are in the playoffs but fighting for seeding and if it really matters. One team that comes to mind is Tampa Bay, what they may do this weekend. Also, too, what New Orleans may do this weekend, with this Kamara news. New Orleans may play this game differently now. There's no guarantee that Kamara is going to be able to play next week. I did read something that if he stays asymptomatic, that he'll have a better chance to play. But now it comes down to the potential issue of, well, we know Kamara is not playing. Are they going to even risk Latavius Murray? Why risk your top back now of potential injury where there's no guarantee you have Kamara back next week? And will they even want to have Drew Brees in there then either? So
I think it has to come down with the fact that they're going to have to do some scoreboard watching because they still have a shot at the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah.
They need, if they win and Green Bay loses, and remember, Chicago's playing to get into the playoffs, and the Bears have been playing excellently over the last month or so. So I don't think Green Bay just rolls over the Bears. If that game's close, I don't think New Orleans can sit their players because the bye, that number 1 seed, is more important than it's ever been because there's only one bye this year. And I was inclined to look at Taysom Hill even this week if Drew Brees wasn't going to play, but then I saw that New Orleans still has a shot, and if I've got to check the times, but I think they're all playing at the same time. I should probably pull up the football.
The NFL has coordinated that pretty well. That any games that have impact on each other, they're all starting at the same time.
And so you've got these late games. They're going to have to scoreboard watch a little bit because if was up 14-3 at the end of the first quarter. I mean, New Orleans can't pull anyone because they've got to win that football game because even Seattle's a shot still at the number 1 seed. So I think you're going to have to see the Saints playing hard. So despite the fact that, that we may need to see that they may want to save a guy like Latavius case, because if Chicago comes back and that game's with Green Bay, and I think it will be a close game, I think that's great for fantasy and it keeps New Orleans playing.
Yeah, well, so New Orleans, here, let's see. So they'll lock up the number 2 seed with a win. I mean, to me, having the number 2 seed, even though there's no bye, I still think it's important because, if you're going to have to go to Green Bay for the NFC title game, I mean, I'd rather have to face Green Bay in the title game than have to face them in the divisional round if I had, say, the 3 seed.
If the 3 seed if the 4 seed, if, the Green Bay somehow gets knocked off at some point, being the number 2 seed, you get that home field for the championship game.
Yeah. So the Saints will get the number 1 seed with a win. The Seahawks have to win as well, and the Packers need to lose. So it's a little convoluted in there of what happens. But the Saints have a chance. I mean, really, they got to win and need help.
Seattle's not losing. I don't think any of those 3 teams are losing, but I think Green Bay's got the best chance to lose, which really opens up the door for New Orleans. Which I do think will affect their running situation.
Yeah. But back to the original question on quarterback. After we got,
I don't know how we got to New Orleans on that one. I was just I was trying to work back through the rabbit hole on that one. I don't know how we got there, but I think it's an important conversation we've had.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. But for me this week, really, it's going to come down to either Lamar or Kirk Cousins, and a lot of that is going to depend on where your comfort level is on spending this week. We've already seen value open up at running back. There could even be more value that comes. There's already plenty of value at wide receiver, and there potentially still could be more. And we always know we like to find the bargain basement guys at tight end or defense. So it really is going to come down to which players do you think are the best to spend up at. And looking at that, you're going to have to look at guys that, again, are playing for something and are basically going to need to play the whole game in order for their team to win. At the tops of those lists, I mean, the high-priced guys are up there, like Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. So it just becomes where your preference is. And so far, with the way my lineup has worked out, I've been leaning Cousins over Lamar Jackson. But if you feel more comfortable on using Lamar Jackson because he's going to be in there the whole game, there's not going to be an issue, versus, I mean, I guess there's a slight possibility they take Cousins out at halftime because they aren't playing for anything. I mean, there's always that possibility. I don't think there's reason for that to happen. They've kind of been out of it for a couple of weeks now with, they don't have a backup quarterback they're trying to evaluate or anything. So my guess is there's no issue with Cousins there. But you can say Lamar is the perceived safer play just because we know he's going to be in there all 4 quarters without an issue. But it's down to Lamar and Cousins for me. And again, it's just wherever your preference is, finding the value.
I think Lamar makes the most. It's like over on Yahoo, Lamar Jackson is the same price as Kirk Cousins. I've got Lamar Jackson in as my cash game quarterback. Wow. Yeah, I see the look on your face. Yeah, they're both $34, which is not bad at all for Lamar. It's a little more expensive than I'd want to spend on Cousins, and it's way less than I thought I'd spend on Lamar. I thought it'd be at the $40 range. But now I look over at DraftKings, and you've got Lamar Jackson sitting at $8,000 and Kirk Cousins at $6,300. That $1,700 is a lot of money, and here's the thing with Jackson. Jackson's been playing great. He's been averaging about 28 points over the last 4 weeks, but 28 points doesn't get you to 4x, and we really do want 4x from our quarterbacks, especially this week. I think it's going to be a really high-scoring week for fantasy. I don't think that cash line is going to be 150. I think we're going to be talking closer to 175 this week for a cash line, so 4x is really where we want to be with that quarterback, especially if we're taking some chances at some of the other positions, and I think we will be. So Jackson needs to get up over 30 points for that to be, within shouting distance, which he can do, but he's only done a couple times this year. And his one game against Cincinnati this year, he only put up 14 points. Cincinnati's given up over 110 yards 3 of the last 4 games on the ground, but they haven't given up a ton of passing yards aside from last week. And prior to that, they really haven't been terrible against the run this year. Meanwhile, Kirk Cousins has 3 or more touchdown passes in 5 of his last 8 games. He's got 20 more fantasy points in those 5 or 6 games, or 18 or more in all those games. And at $6,300, he only needs to be around 23, 24 points to get us around that 4x that we're looking for. And I do think this is one of those games that I do think Cousins has something to play for. Maybe not the playoffs, but Cousins is on a little bit of shaky ground in Minnesota right now. Didn't make the playoffs this year. Played okay, but isn't a guy that they're 100% sold on. I think drafting a quarterback in the first or second round next year is very much within the realm of possibility for Minnesota. Cousins is a very expensive player. I think he wants to keep his job. There's incentive with Justin Jefferson being only 111 yards away from the NFL rookie record for receiving yards, which I think they're absolutely going to want to get. And with Dalvin Cook not playing after the passing of his father, I think this team's going to be motivated to play hard for Dalvin and to go out there and do their thing. And they're not going to do it on the shoulders of Alexander Madison, who's banged up. Matt Boone and Amir Abdullah are not going to get 25 carries. So I do think that this game is they're just going to pass the ball. I'm not sure we'll see 50 attempts, but 35, 40 attempts against probably the worst defense in the NFL. Detroit has given up 40 points and 45 points. 46 points or more in back-to-back games. They've given up 30 or more points in like 8 of their last 10. They're giving up a ton of yards. Cousins, the last time he played them, was the only time he was under 250 yards over the last 8 weeks, but he also had 3 touchdowns and over 20 fantasy points. So he still put up a great game on only 20 attempts, and they had Dalvin Cook for that game. So I just don't see how Cousins doesn't put up a decent game. And there's always one game in week 17 between 2 teams that have nothing to play for that goes a little bananas. And doesn't this feel like that game? I mean, there are things to play for. That Justin Jefferson record, I think, means a lot to Minnesota. I think it means a lot to Kirk Cousins and for Jefferson, which is why Jefferson's in my cash game lineup. And to save that $1,700, I think makes a huge difference over Lamar Jackson. I could see a scenario where Baltimore gets up, 24-0 pretty early, because Cincinnati doesn't have much to play for, and Baltimore's defense is fine, and Lamar Jackson just hands the ball off to Gus Edwards, who is on the injury report now. Maybe Mark Ingram gets another run. He's winding down his career. They give him a little more run during the end of this season. J.K. Dobbins is a guy that you can give the ball to. Like, Lamar doesn't have to do it all for Baltimore in this game, and I do think Kirk Cousins is going to just have the volume to make it work this week. So that's why I got Kirk Cousins right now. But again, on Yahoo, same price. I'm going to go Lamar Jackson. But $1,700 difference. That's 20%. That's 20% difference. I'm going to roll Kirk Cousins on DraftKings at that point.
Yeah, and I don't know if you had mentioned it, but talking about the 4x on the quarterbacks, Cousins gotten on this price. He's gotten there 4 of his past 6 weeks.
He sure has.
He's done well, and I mean, not for nothing, it looks like if Cousins does throw another 3 touchdowns this weekend, I mean, he'll be over 4,000 yards and he'll have 35 touchdowns. And nobody's talked about him all year. It's pretty crazy how he just has this, reputation as, the game manager or not winner, but the guy kind of puts up numbers every year.
He's kind of like the NFC version of Ryan Tannehill when you really think about it. They got a stud running back who gets all the acknowledgement, but both of them are high level, top back end QB1s in fantasy, and they're not big running quarterbacks. So Tannehill runs a little bit more, but Cousins just puts up numbers. He just produces. Moving on to running backs, I know I've got a large list, and I do think by Sunday that this list is going to pare itself down. But how are we feeling about this list? It's a big one. I know we're all really locked in on Derrick Henry because I don't think you can avoid him this week. He's the clear top play against a team that he's rushed for over 200 yards against 2 straight games. They've given up 3 games of 200 plus yards. And he's only 223 yards away from 2,000 yards. And I think they want that for him as they lock up their division. So if we take Henry out of the equation of obviously he has to be there. What do you think about the rest of this pool? Do we need to move people in and out? Am I missing anyone? Do I have too many? I know I have too many people, but any glaring guys that need to be pulled in or out of this pool?
Well, let's see. What do I got compared to you? So I don't think there's anybody that we need to put in. I mean, that is not as of yet, unless we get news that
it'll happen before Sunday, but as of right now.
But as of right now, no, I don't think there's anybody at least on the cash game perspective, that we're missing from here. I do think at the running back position, along with Henry, I think Jonathan Taylor is just a lock button this week. I think you have Henry and Taylor in your lineups, and you don't think twice about it. Jacksonville's basically not playing anybody on Sunday. Most of their at least their top level offensive players are out. It's going to be some of the backups, maybe some other younger guys that haven't been evaluated that they kind of look at in this one. I mean, and Indy's a 14-point favorite, and let's not get it mixed here. Unlike earlier games in the year where Indy was big favorites, and if they were up by quite a bit, they weren't really doing much, or certain guys weren't getting their points. Indy is going to do everything to ensure that they win this game. If they're up 30 points, the starters are still going to be in there, getting their run, because Indy needs to lock this up. So
it's they're 4 spots and they're team number 5 right now. So that's a problem for them.
Yeah. So they're going to be, I mean, they're going all out to win this one to get in. So I think Taylor, you've got to have in there. You've got to pretty much lock him in. I mean, at least in under my perspective anyway.
Yep.
One guy that I'm really not interested in because his price has gotten so high. I mean, I guess it's somewhat justified from his recent performances, but I'm not using David Johnson. I'm not even going to consider him at that price. Duke Johnson might be back this weekend, and the offensive line is banged up. Tunsil's going to be out this week, he's their best offensive lineman, and that's not saying much on that offensive line. But losing your starting left tackle, and that could be a game too that could just be a game maybe that Watson just goes out to try to prove a point for as bad of a season that the Texans have had. For everybody, kind of going into the offseason, remember that he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. But yeah,
I think they roll over.
Yeah, I mean it's possible, but again, I just don't have much love for David Johnson at that price. It's a little too rich for my blood.
Speaking of Houston, before we get to the rest of the running backs, Brandon had asked if we think Houston's going to be inspired or deflated by J.J. Watt's passionate rant. I don't think it matters, is what I said in the chat box. I said, I don't think it matters. I think the talent on the team they can try all they want. They're not going to be there. They're just not a very good defense. Offensively, they're okay, but they have nothing to play for in that respect. Watson's pride is pretty much all they have. I don't see it. I don't think it's going to make a difference, even if they want to, especially on defense. But even offensively, I think I just don't think they're there.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes something like that can rile up a good team. But like you said, there's just no talent on that defensive side. They just don't have anybody left. There's just not much there. And honestly, in a lost season, I don't think that's going to get anybody up for a Week 17 game. That doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, they didn't get up a game yet this year. It's been a sad season in Houston. They have some major changes to make.
Yeah. And then from there on running back, I mean, it's going to be again, Miami. We're in that same situation with where Parker and Grant are very questionable, and I think if those guys are out,
They both active today.
yeah, limited.
Yep.
We'll see where that goes if they are active. I mean, in the event that they're both inactive, I think Miles Gaskin you should give a hard look at. Because again, I don't know what motivation Buffalo may have to play for anything. I don't know if they're going to want to play to win to get that 2 seed. If they care, if they don't care. I mean, again, same thing for me. If I would want the 2 seed because the later I have to face Kansas City, the better. But we'll see what they do or what.
I don't think Buffalo's scared. I'll be honest. I don't think Buffalo fears Kansas City. I think they want them. I do.
Maybe?
I think Buffalo. The line dropped. The line 5 points. I don't think Buffalo is going to be playing starters. I think they know. I wrote them up this week as a trap play. And I don't think it'll have to be a trap play because I think they'll be inactive. I don't think Josh Allen will even be in a jersey come Sunday morning. I just don't see it happening. I can't see why they would.
No, I mean, it
which is great for Miles Gaskin. It's great for Gaskin.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, with Fitzpatrick on the COVID list, we know that they're going to be much more run focused anyway. And with Miles Gaskin there, I mean, the guy is the clear lead back. And to my beginning point, if Grant and or Parker are out, I think that just gives more reason for them to run the ball. And it could be one of those games that it ends up being a pretty easy win for Miami if Buffalo isn't using their starters. And that plays right into Gaskin's hands also. So I think he's strong consideration there too. Again, depending on where.
Side question for you. Question for you. Let's live in a happy world where Ryan Fitzpatrick doesn't have COVID, and they're smart, and Brian Flores was enough to start him, which he wasn't going to. But let's say he was, and he's $5,300. Would he have been in that conversation for cash game quarterback this week? Because I surely think he would have been for me.
Oh God, yeah, I think he would have been a no-brainer.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Just to show you what we think of. I think that's more to show you what we think about Tua as a quarterback because he's only 5,100 and he doesn't even sniff my cash game pool. But if it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, there would be one name on that list and it would have only been Ryan Fitzpatrick at $5,300. Yeah. So I think that tells you. I actually think that plays in Miles Gaskin's favor as well. So like we just don't buy into Tua, and I think it hurts. Later on when we get to tight end, I think it hurts Gesicki a little bit too. If Fitzpatrick plays, Gesicki against Buffalo is a great spot. I think Gesicki against Buffalo with Tua is not in as great of a spot though. At $4,200, he's still a good play. I will let you back to running backs. I just had to make sure that you and I were on that same page because I think in this fantasy alternate universe, Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to take us to cash game glory this week.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like towards the bottom, some of those mid or, cheaper price range guys. I mean, Malcolm Brown is probably going to be, as chalky a play this week as Derrick Henry is. Whether or not you need to use him or you have the stomach to use him is the biggest question there. We were actually talking about it 2 days ago when we were first kind of, throwing our cash ideas and different lineups out there. And Malcolm Brown was, in mine, and you said you couldn't run away from Malcolm Brown fast enough, and
yeah.
And with some of the news, some things have opened up value, and I'm kind of leaning away from Malcolm Brown a little bit, and also Cam Akers is now a game time decision where it looked like he wasn't going to play. So if he is active, to me that takes Brown out of the conversation because it is a must-win game for the Rams to get in the playoffs. So if Akers is active, it's not a decoy. The guy's going to play. And that takes Brown out of it too. And that being a late game, maybe it makes things a little more complicated also. I
don't know about that because you just run your 2-2. In that case, you have a receiver and a running back. You have Brown with a running back, and then you've got like Davis Murray with a running back with the receiver. And then Brown with the receiver and Murray with the receiver. Both of them late games. You make an easy swap once the inactives come out. I think because there are so many games and all the ones that really matter are going late. I actually think this is one of the few weeks where a later game with some questions isn't as damning as it is in most weeks.
Yeah. I mean, like any week, you can always
put him in your flex. Put him in your flex.
Yeah. You can always have that backup plan ready to go. But again, I don't think I'm going to end up going there just because of the Akers news. And again, there's enough value you can find elsewhere. Like I'm almost at the point where if I wanted that value on the Rams, maybe I'm more likely to go Reynolds than Brown, just because I'd rather have the cheaper option.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Love it.
And also too, I mean, Melvin Gordon, I've warmed up to as well. After we spoke about him, I did some digging into it, and don't get me wrong, I was on Melvin Gordon last week. I had him in my cash game. I thought he was a great option last week. So after we spoke about it, I was like, I overlooked him. I didn't think anything of it. Forgot that I thought Lindsey was only out last week. I forgot he was done for the year. Mm-hmm. So now you've got a guy Gordon that 5,700. It's a decent enough price. He's gonna have 3 down work regardless of the game flow. And looking at the Raiders, I forgot how bad the Raiders were against running backs. They're basically bottom 6 in every statistical category against running backs this year. It's such a prime position. We saw a couple weeks ago, Taylor, ran roughshod over them. Myles Gaskin abused them last week. I mean, it's to the point that the Raiders should be, a team to target with running backs. It's just their schedule has been weird with the running backs that they've faced. But this could be a very strong spot for Gordon. And again, with the matchup and the usage that he should see and all, and his snaps, he should be a really strong guy in there this week.
Yeah, the thing with them is the Raiders have given up 160 yards on average over the last 4 weeks, 2 games of over 200 yards rushing allowed, and Melvin Gordon's only 107 yards away from 1,000 yards, and justify the offseason contract. I think he wants that 1,000-yard season. I'm a little concerned. Lack of, but that's more of an anomaly. But maybe, I mean, but that's Lindsey was around. It's a little 3 to 4 targets this game. It's tough because right now I'm definitely debating. I have Latavius Murray because that game they have something to play for. It's really hard to not take a running back against the Raiders. So I could very easily switch that to Gordon. I just think Latavius Murray has slightly better touchdown upside, except for the whole Taysom Hill's going to steal every touchdown. I'm going to curse Sean Payton's name. Like, I can see it right now, like just about 42 hours from now, me sitting in the Slack chat going into the room once again for the 8th week in a row, talking about how much I hate Taysom Hill and Sean Payton. When really I should just hate myself for continuing to roster New Orleans running backs, except this day when I didn't put Alvin Kamara as my captain. I had him. But even then, Sean Payton screwed him and Taysom Hill screwed him because he could have had the record, and they gave it to Taysom Hill from the 1, and then they run back Alvin Kamara to get number 6. The hell is wrong with this team? They're like, I hate when New Orleans is on the slate because I feel I have to play them, but then I get Taysom Hill. It's awful. It's awful.
I know, but won't it feel better though if Taysom Hill screws a $5,600 running back instead of a $9,000 running back?
Yeah, no, yes, except for the fact that I know I could have played the $5,700 running back who's playing the freaking Raiders. Just like the thing is, it's not like I'm just, there's a difference between us and the people watching us right now. And that's not to say we're better than anyone, but like, I come on here and part of my job is to come out and discuss what to do. And so I put it out there. We put out our picks for the world and we talk about what we know is best. And we know Sean Payton will do this and we talk about it. And then what do? Like a dumbass, I still put him in the lineup. And it's like, you knew better. I can go back onto YouTube and watch the video that showed you said, don't trust Sean Payton. And you went and put in Latavius Murray when you had Melvin Gordon sitting right there. You had the $100. What were you thinking, dummy? I go, I don't know. But then at least, thank God, at least we get the opportunity to see our members with their green screens going, well, I played Melvin Gordon. It's like, of course you played Melvin Gordon because you're smarter than me. I put together a great pool. I just don't listen to myself all the time. And I'm sure we'll be pissing him on. And I'll talk this up again Sunday. I'm like, why would I play Latavius Murray? I don't trust Sean Payton. Latavius Murray, lock button. Like, that's what we do. But it's not a bad play. It's like a great spot for Murray this week.
It is. And listen, I mean, unless something comes out between now and Sunday, I mean, Murray is probably going to be extremely high owned.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is like you've got to play him then. But then when Melvin Gordon gets you 30 and Latavius Murray goes, 23 carries, 98 yards, and no touchdowns, and Taysom Hill has 3 1-yard rushing touchdowns, and you say a lot of words in front of your 9-year-old daughter you shouldn't be saying. No, honey, I don't hate anybody. No, sweetheart, we're not supposed to hate coaches we've never met. No, honey, I really don't wish that he never plays football again. Of course, I'd like to see the Saints do well, sweetheart. No, daddy's not being that horrible of a person.
Oh, man.
But I love the matchup. I love the matchup. He's in my cash game lineup as of right now. So that, moral of this story, I've got Latavius Murray in my cash game lineup currently because I think the matchup is right. And when Murray doesn't play, Murray does fine. Murray's a stud.
Oh yeah, Murray has shown it, and we'll see where it goes. But there's a lot of options in that mid range there.
You trust that Arians is going to give a lot of work to Ronald Jones? He says, we're going to get Ronald Jones a ton of work. You trust him? Because Arians a dirty liar.
No, I don't.
The thing about Tampa Bay, though, like, does Tampa? I mean, that number 5 seed is tasty because you get the NFC East champion.
Yeah, and
like,
honestly, and I mean, it's looking more and more like the NFC East champion is going to be either the Giants or the Cowboys. I don't see how Washington wins. I don't think Gibson or McLaurin are playing again. I just don't know how they win. But Philly is sitting a lot of guys too, so it's going to be weird. It's going to be a weird ending.
Yeah, I think Miles Sanders is sitting, right? It's going to be crazy.
Sanders is out. Goddard's out. Deshaun Jackson's out again. I think one of the old linemen is out. A couple of defenders are out. They just all over the place. They're not playing people in Philly. So
here's the thing, though, too. In Tampa Bay, the desire to play the NFC East champion, but I'm starting to think a little bit now, too. Dallas has looked really good lately because I think Dallas comes out of this division. I think Dallas beats the Giants, and I think Philly beats Washington. I think Dallas takes the division. I'm not so sure I'd rather play Dallas than Chicago or Arizona or the Rams at this point. That's not what would happen though if Tampa Bay falls. I don't even know who the hell Who does Tampa Bay play if they're the
if they don't play the NFC
Seattle? Oh yeah, no, I don't want that.
Oh yeah, well yeah, it would be one of Seattle, Green Bay, or New Orleans, depending how that falls. And so, I mean, I guess the 5 seed means a little something if you're getting the East team.
Dallas. Yeah. Ugh. Tampa might play to win. And if they play to win, if Arians is true to his word, it's a good matchup for Ronald Jones.
Yes, that it is. I mean, at that price, Jones can be a very good play this week. But is the workload going to be there? That'll be something to monitor. All things being equal, yes, Jones would be a fantastic play in this matchup. And it's a very good opportunity. He's a great price. I mean, he's been over 6,000 for a while before he was out, right?
Yep.
So that's one of those things. Well, if he's going to get the workload, then yeah, it's a good play. But where is it going to be? What's really going to happen there?
Somehow I'm going to end up with Ronald Jones or Latavius Murray, and Gordon's getting 40 this week. That's lock button that right now.
You know what, too, though? I mean. The past 2 weeks, really game and a half, it's looked like Brady has really taken that offense over, and he's kind of making the decisions, not so much the coaches anymore. And over the past 15 plus years, do you ever remember a week 17 where Brady wasn't playing for blood? I mean, there would be years where they had the number 1 seed wrapped up, and Brady's out there putting up 35 points.
Yeah, he's not the kind of guy who wants to just rest on his laurels.
So, if Brady is doing that, well, then no offensive starter is going to say, yeah, I'm gonna sit so I don't get hurt for the playoffs. I don't think anybody's going to do that when your 41-year-old quarterback's out there, trying to put up 30 points.
Yeah, I think he's 43.
40.
I mean 41. Like he's a freak of, by the way.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
If I got I'm younger than Tom Brady. I got to put that out there. I'm a little bit younger than Tom. I got, it's an argument I had with my brother the other day about Tom Brady, just as a little side conversation, because I'll get your take on this. Then we'll move on to wide receiver, because I know we've gone way off path today. But whatever, it's week 17. Who cares? I got a new microphone. Life is good. So Tom Brady. My brother's like, okay, Tom Brady's not a great quarterback. He's a system quarterback, blah, blah, blah. And this year he's like, oh, we had the greatest weapons he's ever had. Of course, he's having a good year. But I'm looking at, and I'm not a Brady guy. I mean, I don't like Tom Brady. I respect his ability as a quarterback. And I do think he's the greatest quarterback in the history of football till Patrick Mahomes finishes his career, when he will be the greatest. But for right now, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback in the history of football. And I think it's been proven this year, because look what the Patriots are doing without Tom Brady. And look what Tom Brady's doing without the Patriots. Like,
yeah.
He's good. I get that he has talent, but other quarterbacks have had talent. They haven't done what he's done with it.
Yeah, and not to mention, 43. I mean, everybody said, the Patriots have nothing on offense, but it's the same exact offense they had last year. And Brady got him to 12 wins and and the playoffs.
He won a Super Bowl with Deion Branch as his best receiver, and he made Troy Brown a borderline Hall of Fame receiver. So I don't want to hear that about Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady's never had weapons. The one year he had weapons, or the one era, was the Randy Moss, Wes Welker. And we saw what he did when he finally got weapons. They went undefeated in the regular season and came within a David Tyree helmet catch of going undefeated for the whole season. So that's what he did with talent. Without talent, he just happened to win 13 games in a super, and he would squeak by on a Super Bowl win. So it's like, oh, Brandon's chiming in. I think he's on team anti-Brady with their suspicious trainer. I'm not saying he's a person I like. I'm not a fan of Tom Brady, the man. I just think he's a good football player. And I think the Patriots, I mean, Cam Newton was a great quarterback, and he did nothing with this football team. And Belichick had this, and McDaniels had this entire new way to play with the offense, and they couldn't do squadoosh with it. So I just think we got to give Brady his due. Speaking of Tom Brady, one of his wide receivers, Mike Evans, is like less than 100 yards away from putting up a 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season, which I think puts him in cash game conversation, assuming we think Tampa Bay plays, which is why he's in the cash pool, not in my personal cash lineup. What do you think about the wide receiver pool that we have here? What do we need to change? It's a big pool, but again, I think it's a week worthy of a big pool. There's 15 games.
Yeah. I actually am really surprised that Darius Slayton is in there. I mean, the price is tempting, but there are better value options. And, I was talking about this with Sean earlier today. We were talking about Sterling Shepard, and Shepard's come on pretty strong for the Giants. He's kind of taken over the number one role. He's been, the targets have been there. Evan Ingram has stepped up a lot too. He's been becoming more of a focus on offense with the targets as well. And Slayton's really just kind of been a guy, he's kind of just been there. And I mean, again, I didn't dig that much into him this week. I wasn't crazy about him. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? The last 3 weeks, he's gotten 8 targets, 9 targets, and 8 targets, but he's only turned that into 2, 3, and 4 catches. Yeah, I mean, even at this price, he hasn't. He's actually been just as cheap the past 3 weeks. He hasn't gotten the 3x. Slayton's almost become a guy where if he's not hitting that, home run, he's literally not doing anything. He has.
It's Dallas. It's the Dallas defense for me in this case. Honestly, it's the fact that Dallas is they're such a plus matchup. Shepard being $1,100 more. Remember too, when I wrote the article, Shepard was on the injury report. He's now been pulled from the injury report, so that makes Slayton a little less desirable for me. I did like the target volume, and I did love the matchup, but also, again, it's a lot that had to do with not being sure Shepard would play. I do agree that he does not belong on a cash game pool with Shepard playing.
And also, too, I mean, very much so, if I was looking in that price range for somebody, I would rather go Mooney at the same price, or I'd go Reynolds or Washington over Slayton as well. Not that Washington's a sexy pick, but Pittsburgh's really not going to be playing much of anybody this weekend. And Washington had a very good rapport with Rudolph last year.
Because they went to college together.
So,
Washington was one of the premier receivers in college when Mason Rudolph was his quarterback at Oklahoma State. We spent quite a bit of money with Bankster playing that Rudolph Washington stack. It's a good time.
Yeah, but
maybe that's a sentimental pick for me, then.
The what?
It's a sentimental pick for me because past history money. We like winning money, and they've won money for us before. Not that I play Mason Rudolph this week.
No.
Myles Garrett's going to do things to him
God.
this week. It's going to be ugly. I do think too at the $4,100 price point too. If you're looking at that, but not just Mooney or spending down to Washington or Reynolds, I think Pascal's a better play at that point too. And I don't think we need three guys in the $4,200 range. So I do agree. Slayton was fifth on that list of five guys he needed to come off. Good catch there.
Or even, I mean, if you're looking down in that range for somebody, I mean, maybe a guy like you probably don't need it for cash, but if you were looking in that range for whatever reason, Laviska Shenault may be a guy to look at. I'm sure they're going to give him plenty of work this weekend, trying to evaluate him. Chark's going to be out. Again, there's at that point when you're sometimes getting on these low price guys, you're looking for a reason sometimes to play them when, we've got plenty of reason with cheaper guys, and there's, value options elsewhere that'll be better.
Would actually get some rushing attempts. I know that was one of the coming out of college was that he's, super versatile and he gets a lot of rushing attempts, and they just haven't done it, and they haven't needed to, right? Because James Robinson's been so good, but Robinson's playing this week, and it might be interesting to see if Shenault can be a Curtis Samuel type. Curtis Samuel cash core play this week. But it might be interesting to see that because Shenault hasn't gotten much run out of the backfield yet, but his targets have been really encouraging the last few weeks. I'm not so sure in this matchup. I'm comfortable putting him in my cash, but I do think he's worth at least discussing because, he's got 24 targets over the last 3 weeks. He's the only game in town right now. Put a couple of touchdowns in the end zone, been over 10 points 3 straight weeks. I mean, he's cash game viable. I don't know if I play him over Mooney or Pascal. I don't hear Pascal. I like Mooney. I think Mooney's been better this year, but I do think there's an argument you can make for Shenault. I do think that's a good call. That's a good catch. That's a good catch there, Gouda.
Yeah.
So I pay you
the very big bucks. Don't forget it.
All the bucks.
But as far as that, I mean, the cheaper receivers, I think that's about it. Where you're looking on the value end, and then the other areas, in that mid range and up top, I'm really into Curtis Samuel this week. Mike Davis being out, I think, is going to help Samuel a lot. The two running backs that they're using this week, the guys weren't even on the opening day roster. So, one of the guys, Trenton Cannon, was a cast off from the Jets. So that says all you need to know about him. And the other running back that's going to be active, his name slips my mind. But again, why not use the weapons that you got just to, if you want to try to end the season on a high note, play a little spoiler potentially to the Saints. You use the guys that are your best. So I think it could be a bigger week for Samuel, and not for nothing. Samuel the past couple of weeks has been kind of pacing them in targets. I mean, he hasn't been leading them in targets every week, but he's getting a pretty good share of it. And when you add in the fact that they're finding ways to give him rushing attempts every week, he did have 7 last week. And with Davis out, I mean, it's very possible he gets another 5 to 7. So if you're getting 5 to 7 rushing targets, rushing attempts, and you're getting another 6 to 8 targets, I mean, that's a strong day at that price range.
One of the things that Curtis Samuel, he reminds me of midseason Corey Davis, and the fact that he just doesn't score lower than 10 points. If I'm trying to, of course, computer's running slow right now, but I wrote up the stat in my article this week that he's been under 10 points since week 5. That's really strong. Twice. He's been in double digits every other week. He's been getting a bunch of targets, 5 target game this year. He's been, he hasn't scored touchdowns recently, but he went through a spell where he was scoring almost every single game. And if you look at all-purpose yards, 70 yards away from 1,000 all-purpose rushing and receiving this year, which would give the Panthers 4 players over 1,000 yards this year, which is pretty rarefied air in the NFL. So, not counting return yards. And so I think they want to get him to that point. And so again, just like with Justin Jefferson's another guy, I think there is it for him to do something, especially as the third wide receiver on the team with the running backs out. They probably aren't going to want to do too much with DJ Moore. because, he's been a little injury prone, nicked up this year, and they don't want to hurt him. He's their future. And Robbie Anderson, will be okay. But I think Curtis Samuel giving him a ton of work is not something that they're going to have a problem with. If I'm not mistaken, Samuel's a free agent after this year too. So I don't think that they're terribly concerned about overusing him this week to save him for next year or anything like that. I'm sure they'd like to resign him, but I think he's going to get a bunch of work. And I think in that, it's for me, he's got, of all those guys in that mid-range, and I do have Crowder and Gallup, and you could look at the CeeDee Lamb and T. Higgins type players as well in that mid-range. Marquise Brown, I think, is viable this week in cash as well, though he's not viable enough to put on the list. But I think you could discuss, a Marquise Brown. I think Curtis Samuel's the guy who's just got the opportunity to do the most stuff. He might not get as many targets as Crowder. He might not have the touchdown upside as Gallup or the incentive as much, but he does have the opportunities that other guys might not have. And I do like Samuel. Crowder's not throwing another 40-yard touchdown this week.
No, probably not.
Now that I've said it, it definitely happened. But he's, Crowder's fine, and I've got him cash over at Yahoo, but on DraftKings, I don't think I need to use him this week. I'd rather use Samuel because I can spend up for Jefferson. And I had concerns about spending up at wide receiver too much above Jefferson. I think Adams is fine, but he's still really pricey, and I don't think you can get Adams and Henry in there comfortably this week. And I'd rather have Henry. Kind of the same thing with Ridley, and I don't know. There's only so much incentive a team can have, and I know Ridley's been playing really well without Julio Jones, but at some point, Atlanta's just going to roll over. Tampa's a good enough matchup, and Ridley could get you 8 for 100, which is fine. I mean, it's a good return, but it's too much bust potential. And if Tampa's really motivated, Matt Ryan could just get slaughtered in this game. I think he's worth talking about. I can't put him in my own lineup though.
Yeah, no, I understand that point. And he's getting. I mean, he's pricey. He's up there. Like you said, Atlanta's missing 2 of their starting offensive linemen this week, so that if Tampa is playing, to win, Tampa does have a pretty good pass rush. That'll hurt things too.
Tampa's missing some defenders. They were added to the COVID list, but Atlanta's bad. Atlanta's just bad. I think there are spots where I think certain teams are going to roll over this week, and I think Atlanta is one of those teams that is just going to roll over this week. Whereas I think Minnesota plays their butts off for Dalvin Cook. And for other reasons as well. I just don't think Atlanta. I just think their heart's in it. I think Atlanta, Houston, I think they're just done. They just want to end the season. They're kind of toast to me. And so I can't do it. I might use them in a GPP, but our cash game discussion, I do think he's worth putting in the pool, but if I'm spending up, it's Justin Jefferson for me. Simply, especially because while I don't like to stack in cash, if it's, all things otherwise being equal, I will take that stack for a little bit of GPP upside, for a little bit of that correlation. If Cousins has a good game, odds are Jefferson's doing well, and vice versa. So I'm gonna and they've had enough good games this year together where I feel comfortable making that play in cash. Tight end. I mean, I don't like a lot of value options in tight end this week. I hope he's okay, but I'm hoping that Hunter Henry sits out again this week. Donald Parham was a little sick this week, non-COVID related. He's okay now. He should be playing. But Steven Anderson out-targeted him 6-3 last week. Anderson has done things before in the NFL, former Texans tight end. He was a receiver in college. I believe he went to Cal. But I remember Steven Anderson just being a decent college wide receiver who's, NFL tight end. And he's an athletic guy. I've always been impressed with Steven Anderson. I've always waited for him to break out, and $2,600. Given the fact that I want to spend up elsewhere, I think he's worth a play for me. If not, Irv Smith is worth looking at, especially if you're going with Lamar Jackson and not using Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins. I think Irv Smith's the clear play for under 4K. Gesicki has the matchup. He torched Buffalo when you play teams that are bad against the slot, which Buffalo is. Gesicki does well. The problem being Tua kind of sucks for fantasy. He might be a good NFL quarterback, but I just don't feel. I don't know. $4,200 seems a little high unless I've got the value to spend elsewhere. If I spend down from Gordon or Murray down to Malcolm Brown, then maybe I upgrade to Gesicki. But I think I'd rather go Anderson and Gordon than Brown and Gesicki. I don't think spending up tight end this is the week to do it. Am I missing something here? Tight end was just a position I just couldn't give two craps about this week. It is just it's a dumpster fire this week.
Tight end is really bad. The Hunter Henry is Not going to play this weekend, so Anderson is probably fine there. Yeah, I mean Anderson's probably the best bet at 2,600. I think though, if you're looking in that mid range, that you do have to give strong consideration to Evan Ingram. Ingram's the numbers haven't necessarily been there. He's been okay, but really, when we're paying that, we're looking for opportunities when you're under 4,000, and really the past like 10 weeks, his target share has been unbelievable. Again, not every game he's turned much into it, but last week he had 10 targets. 7 targets the week before that, 4 targets the week before that, but he had 8 and 9, then 3, and then back to actually 3 games in a row with 10, 10, and 9 targets. So since week 7, he's had, every game but 2, he's been 7 or more targets. And he's only $3,700. So if you're looking in that mid range on tight end, if you're not going down to Anderson, or if you have preference for another punt tight end, I think Ingram you can have very strong consideration for. Especially too, because if you happen to be using Cousins and Jefferson in your lineup, you're not going to want to make it a trifecta and have Irv Smith in there. So if you're in that mid range, you were looking for Smith, but now you can't use him, type of thing. I think Ingram is a really solid play there. Again, the targets are going to be there, the opportunities are going to be there, and that's really all you can ask for when you're really looking down. At tight end, if you think of it, if there was a wide receiver getting that type of target share, nobody would think twice about using them. But at tight end, it always gets, who's the next cheaper guy that can get that sort of play? So you look for somebody at 3,200 that is going to get you 5 targets, where you can spend that extra $500 and get a guy that could conceivably see 8 to 10 targets this week.
Whoever thought Irv Smith would be $200 more than Evan Ingram when the season started? I know our Minnesota friends. Our old fan ball crew of Matt, Brian, and Scott probably love it, and Anthony. Sorry, can't forget Anthony. I'm sure they love that. They're big Irv Smith guys, and I love it too. I love Irv Smith, but yeah, it's almost like I looked over it. That's a good play. Ingram and cash is very reasonable. Might get added to the pool before Sunday. I might have to put that in there. I put it now, except things are running very slow on my computer, and I just don't have the time. I just don't have the patience to type it in right now. But I think it makes a lot of sense. Dallas, listen, if I felt the way I did about Slayton at 4,100, then Ingram at 3,700 makes a hell of a lot more sense. I'll be honest with you. And he's a fairly dynamic player, and Dallas is not great against the tight end. So yeah, I like that. I like that play. Tight end is yikes.
Yeah,
tight end is yikes. Don't Kelsey. He's not playing. Looking over at I don't see why you'd spend up on defense this week. I know that's a big surprise coming out of my mouth, seeing as I, every week say don't spend up on defense, and I'm right back there this week. I think Miami 9-29. Buffalo doesn't play their guys. I think the Chargers make some sense against the Kansas City backups, except for the fact that a lot of the Chargers defenders, Bosa's out. A lot of the Charger defenders are out this week. Cincinnati's been plucky on offense. I'm not spending $4,200 on the Ravens. The Colts are fun, but I'm not spending up on a defense. That's just the theme there. I'm not spending up on a defense. So where am I going for defense? We're sitting here at 2,500 for the Browns. Again, Myles Garrett's going to do some things this weekend. He does not care for Mason Rudolph, and this is a team that's trying to make the playoffs against a team they loathe, who are playing all their backups. The Browns have been good anyway. $2,500 is a $3,200 defense against a decent team, average teams. They're $4,000 defense against bad teams. This is essentially a bad team, but Cleveland is priced as if they're playing a good Pittsburgh team. Love Cleveland this week. And I also like the Jets. Their defense has been really good. They've scored 5 or more fantasy points 5 of the last 6 weeks, 8 or more 4 of the last 6 weeks. They are going to try to win this football game. The Jets are locked into the number 2 pick, so there's no reason for them not to win this game. They're already on a 2-game winning streak. They're going to send Adam Gase out in the most ironic way possible by winning 3 games in a row, costing a pick. They're going to stuff it to Belichick. The Jets defense has been good. The Patriots have given up. They don't care. This team is just a mess right now. New England is a mess, and I think the Jets win this football game. I think it's an ugly football game. I think it could be 12-9 or something like that. I think the Jets defense will be just fine. Haven't gotten word. Maybe you've heard. I don't know if Cam Newton's supposed to play, but I'd be shocked if Cam Newton started this football game.
No, Newton. From what I saw, Newton is supposed to start.
Shocked if he finishes. Then I just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, Newton's at least in New England. That was not a good spot for him.
No.
As it turned out, they didn't know how to use his skill set. His heart didn't look terribly in it this year, and you never know. He could have just been feeling some effects of COVID too. He was playing all right, then he got the COVID and has not played well since then. But I think the Jets are motivated, and I think they would love to end this season by slapping Bill Belichick. I would love to see it. Could you imagine the last game of the season and Adam Gase blows out Bill Belichick? That would be
something.
What does the Jets fan think about this? Are the Jets a worthy defensive play this week?
Yeah. I mean, listen, we've used them plenty of times this year.
And way too much this year.
I mean, they really, for their, as bad as the team is, the defense hasn't really disappointed from a fantasy perspective for their price every week. I mean, they think they got negative points twice, and every week they're getting at least 1 or 2 points, even in a bad game. So it kind of works out a little bit.
I think they're worth. We're not spending up though.
No, and I do think one kind of mid-range team too that you can look at, probably the Cardinals defense. They're a little higher than the Browns are. They're at 2,800. But again, they've gotten 6 points in 4 of their last 5 games, right? Was that it? Let me double check this now. I'm doubting myself. Yeah, they've scored 6 or more fantasy points in 4 or 5 games. They're going up against the backup quarterback, no Cooper Kupp, maybe only Malcolm Brown in that backfield. The Rams offense is banged up. It could be a good spot for the Cardinals defense if you wanted to go that route. I mean, I have more confidence in the Browns defense going against, Mason Rudolph and, a couple hundred cheaper. But, again, if you think the Cardinals have the better matchup against the Rams back,
I keep calling him Mason Crosby.
Sorry?
Have I been calling him Mason Crosby all day? I feel like I have been, or have I been calling him Mason
you called him Rudolph.
Okay. Sorry, Heath and my brother and I had a conversation about Mason Crosby last night. Now I was like, did I just say the wrong name all show? Sorry, that's my ADD.
You're saying Rudolph.
Squirrel moment right there. You're telling me, though, you don't believe in the quarterback who replaced the great Kendall Hinton at Wake Forest? Are you kidding me? John Walford, man, the guy's a stud.
I was loving I was loving the Twitter love this week for the battle of the backups. Have you seen some of the pictures of the Cardinals backup?
No.
He's like, it's almost like the love he was getting. He's almost like a love child of Fitzpatrick and Minshew.
Oh my God, I gotta check this guy out now.
The way this guy was looking. You remember when Fitzpatrick did that press conference? He came out with the glasses, and when he had his crazy beard, he almost looked like Conor McGregor a little bit.
Yeah, he looked like Conor McGregor's brother. Yeah,
that kind of like what the vibe that this guy kind of giving off with some of the pictures that people have been sharing.
It's too bad he's not going to play. Too bad Kyler Murray's going to play this game. That would have been amazing. A playoff berth on the line with 2 backup schlubby knees.
Oh, God.
It's going to be an ugly game. I do know that we don't tend to focus too much on GPP, though, which we will do on heavily. I do want to point out, though, that there are just some games that I think overall are just not worth talking about. And I just wanted to throw them out there right now. I think for the most part, and stop me if this sounds like it's insane here. Jets Patriots is probably a waste of time. Bills Dolphins for the most part is a waste of time. Those teams Kansas and the Chargers for the most part is a waste of time this week. And a lot of Las Vegas and Denver is a waste of time. And honestly, Seattle, San Francisco does nothing for me. And Cardinals does very little for me. Considering there's a lot of games this week, there are games this week that just have very little fantasy appeal to me. I think it's going to be a very condensed group of games that we're going to focus on, which I suppose could open up some of those games like a Seattle stack for something in GPPs. But, I mean, I've just noticed we've talked very little about any of those teams, even for our cash game pools. And a lot of those games, a number of those games have teams shooting for playoff positioning.
Yeah,
very interesting.
I think some of the games you mentioned there might be some value. I mean, I actually wrote about him today. I do like Ty Johnson as a lower owned value running back this week. P. Ryan and Gore are both going to be out. When Gore got hurt in that Vegas game, we saw Johnson take the reins, and he played pretty well. The Patriots defense hasn't been great. And, again, when you've got a value running back that's going to be, most likely over 35% owned, if you can find somebody to pivot off of him, it doesn't take much to really, gain a leg up on things. And, Johnson's probably going to be the lead guy. And if for some reason the Patriots offense is working well and the Jets got to pass a little more, Johnson had 6 catches last week. Johnson gets targets. He'll be out there even if they're, passing. So, it could be a 3-down back at $4,300. I think he's worth a flyer in some GPPs.
And as usual, once we start talking about Jets, we know it's time to end the show. What we do on Sunday, and it's what we're going to do on Friday. We have started talking Jets, and it is time for us to say goodbye, because that's how we have gotten the equivalent of football drunk. It's like, it's cool to, it's almost like it's our safe word. If we start talking Jets, that's like that is our unspoken way of knowing, dude, it's time to end this show. We've got things to do with our life. So with that, with our Jets conversation, this has been the Bankster DFS Week 17 NFL Kickoff Show. That was Michael Gudadero. I am Douglas. I never call myself Douglas.
Wow.
I'm in trouble.
That was a new one.
I am Doug Shane. You can find me at Bankster17 on Twitter. You can find him at The Big Gouda on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube under my name, Doug Shane. Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so you know when we're posting our videos, when we're going live. We will be back Sunday morning, 11:30, talk about GPPs, though very little about those games that we didn't want to talk about, because there's, we'll talk about the good games. If you want to talk to us prior to that, if you're interested in NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, college sports, pro sports, niche sports, everything that we talk about, sports cards collecting, sports betting, you can find us at banksterdfs.com. $3.99 a week gets you access to everything we do. Award-winning articles. Hopefully soon to be more of the FSWA award nominations come out in about 3 weeks. We'll see if we get nominated for any more of those. Award-winning articles, player pools, and of course the best Slack chat in the business. That alone, just the one sport. Just pick one sport. Pick like college basketball alone. The Slack chat alone and the articles alone, just for that, is worth $3.99 a week. But you get everything for $3.99 a week. You get all the Gouda you can handle. It's like a great charcuterie plate. All the Gouda you can handle. And on that dad joke, we started on a dad joke. We're going to end on a dad joke. Folks, thank you for joining us. We will see you Sunday morning, 11:30 in the morning. Gouda, Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year.
Sunday. Hopefully we'll see everyone in Slack. BanksterDFS.com. Later.